Business and Single TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Single TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Roku, and all the smart TVs. I am really excited today because we have Cathy with us. Thank you for being with us, Cathy.
You're welcome, Alejandro. Thank you for having me.
So this program is it's a conversation that we're going to have, and even if somebody is in any of the social media that is listening and you want to chat with us, this is live, so you can be chatting with us. Uh, Kathy, we always start with what you are doing now, and then we go back to your life, how you started to believe in yourself, and what happened in the process. But let's start with what you are doing now.
Okay, well, in 2009, I started a hypnosis business. I specialize in anxiety and trauma, and I work with hypnosis. I work with a tapping sequence. I work with NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and a brain balancing technique called Psych K. So I really help people to understand why they're doing what they're doing, to help them make peace with their past so that they can live a better life.
Mm. Okay, and I know that sometimes let's go a little bit deep in that part of hypnosis because there is a lot of misunderstanding with that word specifically that maybe you can help us to start to open and see like okay, there is nothing wrong with that.
Right, right. Hypnosis has been around for years, and a lot of people have the misunderstanding that a hypnotist can control your brain, which is not true at all. A lot of people see stage hypnosis, which, they think that the hypnotist makes these people bark like a dog and cluck like a chicken. But it really, if those people didn't want to do it, they wouldn't be up there doing it. Because if you've ever seen a stage show, most of the time it's in the evening. Alcohol is usually part of that. And you get about 20 people that say they want to get up on stage and do hypnosis.
Mm,
So the hypnotist will start giving what we call suggestibility tests.
mm,
And he's going to see who's going to take his suggestions to bark like a dog and cluck like a chicken. And then
mm,
he'll go tap people on the shoulder and go sit down, go sit down, go sit down. And he might end up with 6 or 8 people up there that he knows will take his suggestion to do that.
mm,
So it's not about anybody controlling anybody. It's about you being willing to change. Like when somebody comes in here to work, I have to talk to them first to make sure that they really want to change, that
mm,
they really want to stop smoking, or they really want to let go of the anxiety. Because a lot of people think that when they hear the word hypnosis, they think that they can come in to my office, I'm going to wave a magic wand, they're going to walk out, and everything's great. I wish it were like that because I would love to help people and I would be a millionaire. But it's not like that. You've really got to peel the layers of the onion back. And so, working with that part of your brain, that 95% of us is the subconscious mind. And it's where the patterns and programs are set from the time our mom is carrying us in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. And so, hypnosis is all about relaxing your mind and body so that you can go back and work with that part of your brain.
mm,
I always tell people that I believe, that when we were born with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 hands, and we had to learn how to use those,
yeah,
our appendages. We had to learn how to use it because when we were born, we didn't know how to use it.
yeah.
So now we can walk, we can move our arms, we can feed ourselves, we can write, we can do all kinds of things. But God also gave us a beautiful brain, and nobody teaches us how to use that part of the brain. And so that's what I love to help people understand about how to use the brain to have a better life. because we really have more control over our thoughts than we ever know.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really important. So let's go. I know that we're going to continue talking about this, but I want to go back to your story. Where are you coming from? And even some stories that you can share with us, that we can start to understand who was Kathy, what happened in the process, and how you became what you are doing now.
Sure. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And the first panic attack that I remember was when I was 6 years old. My grandfather had died suddenly in his sleep, and I was very close to him. So from that point on, I was afraid of dying. I was afraid of going to sleep. And then throughout my life, throughout all of my childhood, I was always afraid of everything. Um, Throughout high school, I missed a lot of high school, and my life was really pretty miserable. So when I was growing up, there really was not therapy. It wasn't, people just didn't go to therapy back then. That was for the people in the institutes. And the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't know panic and anxiety. I had had every medical test known to the doctors, every a brain scan, a body scan. They couldn't find anything physically wrong with me.
And that
So,
was at the age of 6.
well, it was from 6, it was throughout my life. You know, it
Okay,
was like more in my teenage years where I really started going to doctors and really
okay, okay,
started
okay.
trying to figure out what this was. And so they just said, well, it's your nerves. Here's some medicine. Go home. They don't know what to do with you. So after I graduated high school, I thought, you know what? I can't live this way anymore. And I was determined to find a solution. I wanted to know what was wrong with me, what was happening to me.
Mm.
And so back then we didn't have computers, so I would flip through the yellow pages and I started looking at therapists, and I found a psychiatrist here I'm from Indiana, and there was a psychiatrist here at the IU School of Medicine. He was the head of the psychiatric department, and he introduced me to hypnosis and taught me self hypnosis. And it was like the first dot on my healing journey that was connected, because I had never felt so relaxed in my life. Didn't even know I could be that relaxed. And
Mm.
I don't know what techniques he was using back then because I had never even heard of hypnosis. But I started getting better. And then I was in a self help group that was teaching cognitive behavior therapy. And it was like teaching us that our thoughts were creating the feelings in our body. And it was the first time that I ever thought about the mind and body being connected.
Mm.
But as I used those cognitive behavior techniques, I started getting even more better. So it was like another dot in my healing journey that was connected. And I started feeling better. And then I just started studying and researching the brain and body and how it all works together. And I got better. And I felt like God brought me through that because people needed my story. And so I've always been very open with my stories wherever I've been talking to people, because it's a very debilitating um, uh, thing to go through, and you're embarrassed because all you want to do is be like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be like my schoolmates. I didn't want to have all these fears and these anxieties. I just didn't know how to not do it. So it was
And
very embarrassing.
quick question on that area, because I believe that maybe there is people that doesn't have that problem, but maybe they have somebody that has it in their house or in their place. What do you recommend to them? Because I know that you are talking about this, but how to understand that this is what is happening to them?
Yeah,
Because I haven't experienced, I don't know what is it, and you can see it
right.
and you think like, oh, it's
Yeah,
becoming crazy right now.
yeah. Well, it's very frustrating and, what will I say? Frustrating for parents when they have children, or frustrating when you have a spouse that's going through this. I remember my mom used to tell me to just snap out of it. And I'll remember one of the books that I read early on, and it said, it was written by a doctor. It said, if it were that easy, we would snap out of it because we hate the way we're living. So it's, if you've never had one, you can't empathize because you've never been there. Um, but it's just like, it's not something that people are making up. It's a very real fear. And it's a fear that happens like that. You could be fine, going along fine. Can't tell you how many times I'd be sitting in a restaurant and immediately I had to jump up and leave, or in a grocery store. It got so bad one time that I had a panic attack in my car and I wouldn't drive my car for years. So
Wow.
it is real. It is real when we're going through it. Alejandro, they find that research has shown that when people have a lot of anxiety, they've probably grown up in a home where there's too many should rules, like a lot of control, a big family secret, some kind of abuse, or alcoholism. And
Mm,
children learn to walk on eggshells. We learn to be people pleasers and perfectionists. We hate conflict, we'll avoid it at all cost. And it's just a very miserable life. It's very, very debilitating and scary. Uh, you
and
know,
with that, you are telling me that because you feel like you like born with this and you started to experience that at 6 years old, but you can experience that also because right now in the world there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental health issues. But somebody like me, for example, if I start to go deep inside that anxiety, I can start to have these panic attacks.
anybody can have them at any time.
Okay.
It's when you've been under a lot of stress. When you're under a lot of stress, or when you're under any stress at all, your body starts reacting. And those stress hormones are just flooding your body.
Mm.
And this is a very simplified
Yeah, I know.
way of explaining it, but when your body has been stressed every day, every day, every day with these stress hormones, those stress hormones rub your nervous system like sandpaper and you become very sensitized.
Mm.
So a lot of people with anxiety have maybe a sensitivity to light, or to smells, or to sounds, or to the look on somebody's face. They're just very sensitive to things like that.
Wow.
And it can happen at any time in your life. Mine happened early on,
Yeah.
started early on in my life.
So let's go in the part where you started to work this mind because this helps to have like the better picture of how what is happening and how you can anybody can go through this. Sometimes we are thinking like, no, and to me never happened something like that. But really, at the end, if you are through a lot of stress, your body starts to react in different ways. Some way can be this one, it can be another type of issues, or even another type of illnesses. But this one is very interesting because seems that you are okay, but you're not okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you can be very healthy physically, but mentally you feel sick. You're worried that you're sick. Most people with anxiety and panic attacks worry that they're either dying or going crazy.
Mm,
Um, because a lot of the symptoms will mimic like a heart attack. So one of the things that I do when somebody calls me with anxiety, I always make sure that they've been to a doctor, that they've been checked out, their heart's been checked out, because sometimes some heart conditions can mimic and make you anxious.
mm.
And so for me, I had been checked out every which way and I was fine, but I still ended up in the ER many, many times thinking I was having a heart attack. It's
Wow.
very scary. It's very scary.
So tell us a little bit more how you started to see that process and what help did you need to start to connect your mind and your body and how everything started to fix or improve
Yeah.
or heal.
Yeah. So the biggest aha for me was that my thoughts were creating the feelings down here. So one of my things was feeling like I couldn't breathe, feeling like I couldn't take a deep breath. My heart was pounding out of my chest. And sometimes my chest would hurt. And so what I had to learn was that when I started feeling this symptom come up, instead of taking a thought of, oh my gosh, I'm dying, I can't breathe, that is just perpetuating the problem. I had to learn how to take a thought of, no, it's okay. I know I've been under a lot of stress, and I know that my body is just reacting to all the stress I've taken in. So that was a safer thought and a more knowledgeable thought than the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm dying. I can't breathe. I've got to get to the hospital. I've got to get help.
Wow.
Because that thought just perpetuates the thoughts, just perpetuate the feeling inside.
And what did you need to get to that point to really start to talk to yourself like that? Because sometimes you're like, I have this thought, but it's killing me and I don't want to see anything else. How was that process to start to have the consciousness and the awareness that I have to, it's only my mind and you are like seeing from the outside, this is happening here. I can help you in control. So how was that process?
Well, for me, it was almost like any other like they say addictions, you have to hit rock bottom.
Mm,
I was at my rock bottom. I
mm,
had spent so many years so fearful, so not living life, that I was at the point where I was going to do anything to get better. I was
wow.
going to get to the bottom of what was wrong with me. I was not going to buy that it's just your nerves, which it was my nervous system that was just on fire.
Mm.
But I needed to know why, and I needed to know how it was going to work. And so it was like I was going to I was going to get better come hell or high water. I was going to do something. And I just feel like God led me to Dr. Gross, my psychiatrist. And that started making sense to me, and it started my healing journey.
And tell us what he started to do to help you to start to realize these things.
Well, he was a psychiatrist, so I
Yeah.
was going in and working with him, and he's the one that taught me hypnosis, worked with me with hypnosis, and taught me how to relax my mind and body. So a lot of times when people have panic attacks, nighttime's the worst because everybody's asleep, it's dark, you have nothing else to focus your brain on, right?
Mm.
During the day, you can keep your brain busy with other things, but when it's quiet and you feel like you're the only one up in the whole world, then that's when it gets bad. So what he taught me was how to just use my brain to relax different parts of my body. And I practiced that every single day, every night before I go to bed. I would do some deep breathing and then really really relax each part of my body. And usually by the time I'd get to my knees, I'd be asleep and you know. So, but it was good because it taught me that I could do something. And it
Yeah.
felt good to do something because when you're in the midst of a panic attack, you feel like it comes on so fast a lot of times that it just feels like doom and gloom, like a heavy black cloud that something bad's getting ready to happen.
Okay, and you started to do this daily. How many days you feel that you started to see the results? How was that process?
Well, it took a while because, this thing didn't happen overnight. Nothing's a magic
That's why
pill.
I'm asking.
Yeah, nothing is a magic pill. You have to do daily practices. And I was probably in daily practices for a year, year and a half.
Mm,
I was constantly taking thoughts that made me feel more calm and relaxed.
mm,
Even when I was having a panic attack, I would say, "Okay, I'm calm and relaxed and I know that this is happening. because I've been under a lot of stress and my thoughts were creating this. And so sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. I just had to keep trying day after day, building myself up. I read a lot of books that I could get my hands on. I really immersed myself in mind, body, and understanding it. And it just takes a while. It takes practice. I
Yeah,
mean, after all, it takes the practice of being afraid all those years to get where you are. We don't
yeah,
realize that's a practice, but that is every time you're afraid, you're practicing being afraid.
yeah.
So then we've got to create a new neural pathway that says, no, I don't have to be afraid. I can interrupt that pattern in the brain and and think of something better.
Well, that is really really interesting. So, and that's I was asking of that because I know that a lot of time you want we are in a society that everything has to be like for yesterday. Like yeah, I need that pill that is going to fix everything in 1 second, and suddenly I am perfect and I can continue my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And for me, medication is fine for a lot of people. And I was on medication for a couple of times, about 6 months each time as I was getting better, but not very much. And I didn't want to stay on it. I knew that I didn't want to be on medication the rest of my life to be able to live my life comfortably. And I needed to find different ways.
mm,
And so for me, that was just it wasn't an option for me to be on medication the rest of my life, even though that was the easier way. But like I say, the doctors put me on it for short periods of time twice while I was going through therapy and things.
and at the end, did you find something that you needed to heal some part of your body when you were doing that, or now that you know a lot of other things, what do you think was like the most important thing? Of course, the thoughts, but what else did you started to see?
So back then, I was just start as I started getting better, I started getting into mind body awareness, emotions, and things like that. Back then, it was more of me just understanding what was going on and understanding my nervous system and taking different thoughts instead of the thought of I'm dying, the thought, oh, my lungs are just tight because I've been under some stress, right? As I have grown in my knowledge, I realized that there was a lot of things in my childhood that I needed to go back and heal that little girl within
Mm,
me.
mm,
Um, and so I've worked a lot on my inner child and working with her to help her understand where that came from. Because I truly believe that there's an emotion at the base of everything that happens to us.
yes,
And for me, my belief is that is where you heal.
yeah,
A lot of people, if you take right now, and a lot of people will want to say, for instance, with anxiety, maybe some people want to just take medicine. Maybe but that is just a conscious thing. It doesn't heal what's festering back here in the subconscious mind of where that anxiety came from. Because we come into this world, we're born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else is learned. So it was learned at a moment. And I believe until you get back to that part and heal that little kid,
mm.
that's where the true healing is, what I believe, what I've experienced in here and in my own life.
No, and makes a lot of sense. So sometimes you are thinking when you are working with somebody in that process to help him understand that maybe there is a trigger in their childhood or something that can create those type of emotions. uh, how do you do it, or how you start to find that? I will explain you why I'm asking this. For example, as when I was a kid, I had 7 years old. I got lost,
Oh,
and I got
yes.
lost for, I don't know, like 12 hours, something like that. I don't
Oh, wow.
remember
Yes.
exactly how many hours. So there is a trauma there,
Hmm.
and you start to create another, like another Alejandro living
Yeah.
in. But I live the next 35 years not thinking that that was creating anything. But at the same time, I created a new Alejandro that started to believe, had some issues with some type of authorities, to have some issues with some type of things, fears to some type of things. But because you are leaving, I graduated from school, I graduated from university, I graduated from a master's degree, I am having a good job, everything is working well. I don't see that that can trigger other things.
Hmm. And it may not within you, but then something that might happen to somebody else, and they have a fear. It triggers something in them because our subconscious mind takes in 40 million bits of information per second,
Mm,
and that starts early on. Our subconscious mind is formed third trimester in the womb, and that little kid can hear things. That little fetus can hear things, the embryo or the fetus, and it can take on things. And as we grow, that third trimester to 7 years old are the real formative years. Children's brains live in a kind of hypnotic state, in
mm,
that state of imagination.
mm.
That's why they can take a broom and think it's a pony, or feed your baby dolls, and they live in a world of imagination because
Yeah.
their brains are there at that theta wave, um, brainwaves. And so what you took in may not affect you at all, but somebody else might have taken that same situation, and then it creates issues,
No,
you know.
I am telling you this. I was telling you this story because for me it was like I didn't realize that a lot of things that I was against, because authority, there is no issue with authorities, but I was like creating my own issues with them, some type of authorities. But the way I was behaving, sometimes I was like, why I am so angry about this, or why I am so pushy about this, why I want them to like show that I have the reasoning, and that everything has to be done the way I want, until I realized that that was triggered at that point, and I healed that inner child. So I am agreeing with what you are saying. But for me, it's like how to understand, and that's what I want to explain to people here also, is sometimes we have some this type of issue, like the authorities issue, or getting sick every like every year at the same time, at the same period of the year, with the same type of illness. So suddenly something is happening. It's not only because life happens and you are supposed to be sick every year at the same moment for the same length of time. No, start to look for that awareness and start to open the eyes to see what is happening, what is triggering that. Uh,
Right.
so in my case, I realized that that little boy was still lost until I worked with him and I started
Yeah.
to, to heal that part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I get back to, I want to know about how I get back to that part, or how you find that. It just apps it I have work with different techniques, and it'll organically come out what needs to come out. Like,
Okay.
I was working with a little girl who was so afraid, well, a woman who was so afraid of public speaking,
Yeah.
and it didn't make sense to her. So I was using some of the NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming
Yeah.
exercises, and all of a sudden she started remembering that in first grade, she, the teacher asked a question and she stood up to talk to the class and she said something that the other kids thought was funny and they started laughing at her and she was so embarrassed
mm,
and she had forgotten all about that memory until we started working and all of a sudden it just popped up. So a lot of times when we start doing some of these, using some of the modalities, the subconscious mind is going to pop up some memories
mm,
for you to work on. We worked on that. She went back in her mind's eye. We worked on through hypnosis and we took the adult her, go back and stand beside this little girl in first grade and help her understand what was going on. And then the little girl said, okay, they're just laughing. It's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. And she felt better.
mm.
So it's just linked back.
And if you can go deeply there, there was a big emotion that was that embarrassment that she is that so
Absolutely.
huge that the end stick on her, and it's the same thing. I remember when I was 7 that when I got lost, I cried for 3 hours, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so of course, until I got like there is no more tears to to have, and I got sleep. But sometimes that type of trauma, you will always find an emotion there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When I was growing up, I had a lot of strep throat. I just remember as a kid. Um, and so I outgrew it, but then I started having all kinds of sinus issues, sinus infections. And it got to the point where my doctor said, we got to figure out what's wrong because I can't keep giving you antibiotics. I'd
Mm,
had a CAT scan, MRI of my sinuses. There's nothing there, nothing's wrong. So one of my teachers, one of my mentors was Louise Hay, who wrote "You Can Heal Your Life," and she was the first person that I realized through reading her book that there are emotions at the base of everything.
mm,
And I remember listening to one of her lectures one time, and she said sinus problems are the inner child crying. So I went to my therapist and I said, I want to cry. I want to cry about my childhood. So they put me in hypnosis and said, just, you don't have to think about what it is. Feel the sadness, feel the anger, feel all the emotions that you felt in your childhood that make you want to cry. And I just remember crying and crying and sobbing and crying and crying. And I left the office and that's been probably 30 years ago.
mm.
And I've probably had two sinus infections since.
Well,
Yeah. And it was like I just cried and I got it all that out because those emotions are going to get trapped in our body. We swallow them down. That's why a lot of people overeat because they just can't say what they need to say. You know, our throat is our avenue of expression, and a lot of people don't feel safe saying what they need to say or what they want to say. So a lot of times they'll swallow down their emotions and they'll chew and they'll eat and just keep pushing it down. Um, so, it's very interesting the way the body and the mind are just how it works all together.
no, and I for me this is a topic that is really really interesting. I really enjoy it because it's like finding that okay, there is a reason why we are having what we are having, and that's what we want to share here today. Like okay, how you start to believe in yourself, how you start to believe in your business depends on what you believe in the past, and what are the structure and the programming that we created in ourselves. And I keep going, and because I am opening the eyes, I am trying to open the eyes of people that is listening to us to create awareness. For example, the authority that I was talking, if I was trying to become an authority in my business, I was auto sabotaging myself because I don't like authorities, if you remember. So suddenly that was triggered when I started to create my own business,
Yeah.
because uh, and that's one of the reasons I started to work on that, and I realized, wow, everything started as a 7 years old child that
Yeah.
was lost.
Right.
So sometimes, and that's why I have this program. This program is about creating awareness on people, like, okay, different ways to see it, and that
Yes.
sinus infection that you have, like, you have forever, or I believe that for all my, I don't remember since when, but I have more than 20 or 30 years with my stomach with problems and with a lot of bloating and gases and everything, and I thought that this is how I am.
Yeah.
And suddenly you realize, no, that's not good, that is not how it has to be working. There is other thing that you can fix, and you can start to find what are the issues and what are the fears that you have, and that's why they are being stored there in the, and the embarrassment that you have with, I completely agree with what you were saying, in the embarrassment that I had to do public speaking
Hmm.
was inside there. And every time that I needed to have a conversation, I needed to go to the bathroom first, and then I can come and talk.
Yeah.
So it was part of my programming. So what other things you can say that you have experienced or find in the people that you have been working, that this thing triggered this, so people can start to understand, like, wow, I need some help, and there is some help, and there is something that I can do about this illness or issue that I have.
Mhm. Yeah. One other thing that comes to mind is how we take things in unconsciously as children. So I was working with a client who wanted to quit smoking, and the only time she smoked was when she drank wine. That's the only time she smoked. And it
Mm,
just did not make sense to her. So when we were doing some of the tapping, I had her think about when was sometimes when she saw cigarettes and wine together. What was that connection? And all of a sudden, she had a memory come up that when she was a little girl, they had a big family. And here's this little girl, and she's running around the room because all of her aunts and uncles and cousins are there having a good time. And you think about a little 2 or 3 year old girl who has to look up at a table where all the adults are sitting and they're playing cards or they're eating, and all of her family are smoking and drinking wine and having a good time. That little girl got a wrong message that it was the cigarettes and the wine that was making them have a good time, when in
mm.
fact, it was really that they were all together as a family, that they loved each other, and they were having a good time.
What
Because
age
so
did she
often that
have?
they sit and drink.
What was her age at that moment? Do you remember?
You mean when she saw that? She was like
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. That is incredible,
yeah.
because, and that's another thing that I want to open here. I have two little kids, one of 4 and one of 2, and sometimes you think, like, yeah, they are so little that it doesn't matter, but it really matters. It really matters how you are treating, and even if you make a mistake, because I know we as parents, we do a lot of mistakes, but have the courage to say, I'm sorry, I did it wrong, and
Absolutely. Because
work.
they're learning. We come into this world, uh, we don't have instruction booklets on how to deal with life or love or money or relationships or jobs. We learn from those influential people around us.
Yes.
And if they don't have the best way of dealing with it, we don't learn the best way of dealing with it. This isn't to point fingers at anybody or blame anybody, because our parents were doing the best they could with the knowledge they had from how they grew up, and their parents were doing the best they could with the knowledge from how they grew up, and it went on and on and on. But it's like, I think people now are starting to realize that even though these children are little, their subconscious mind is still taking in things. You think about, you've heard of well, Johnny's mom and dad are getting divorced and Johnny thought it was his fault. 9
mm,
times out of 10, Johnny's mom and dad didn't say, well, it's your fault. But when a child, especially third trimester to 7 years old, those formative years, if they don't feel in a situation, their subconscious mind takes in what must be your fault. Because you think
mm,
about when children are small, they do what makes them happy. Even though if they think they're going to get in trouble, they still do it,
yeah,
right? Because it's going to make them happy. Or when you're trying to pull them away from, you know, a fun thing and they throw a fit, it's because they just want to do what's making them happy. So if they're not happy in a situation, their subconscious mind just takes in that it's their fault. It's a wrong message that we take in. And so, that's where we can go back and really help that little kid, you know, and just be very, just understand that your children may not consciously understand what you're saying, but their subconscious mind is getting it. For
mm,
instance, I always like to tell people, because I work with a lot of adults that come in here that have been adopted.
mm,
There is a lot of, I wasn't even good enough for my own parents to keep me. I
mm,
wasn't lovable enough because that baby took that information. Their subconscious mind knew that they were being given away.
mm,
And so I always tell people, if you are going to adopt out your child or you know somebody that is, tell that little baby, I love you so much, but I'm going to let someone else raise you that can give you a better life. I'm not capable of giving you that life. That baby can't understand the words, but guess what can? Their subconscious mind.
yeah,
Because really, at the base of it, it's not about that you're a bad baby. It's about the mother or the father not being able to take care of you.
mm,
But all
yeah.
that baby understands is that it must be me. Excuse me.
And that comes to my mind. There is something that's it's to create awareness in everything. For example, my wife she do something with my kids about even the plants and the animals, like, okay, take care because they feel and they know what is happening. You don't have to be taking out that leaf because they feel, and suddenly they start to see like, okay, they are feeling like me, and start to take care of nature, take care of everything.
Yeah.
So it's really incredible how you can learn from kids, and
Mhm.
also everything that you are teaching now and saying about how to heal things from kids when you were a kid is like, okay, and if you have kids,
Mhm.
avoid those issues with them so they don't have to be healing in 10, 20, or 30 years, you know.
Yeah. And I also, just a side note, because I have a lot of people in here, when they start learning this, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm really damaging my kids. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? We're never going to be perfect in this world.
Yes.
So don't beat yourself up. Just learn. Just go learn about the brain and the body and how it works. Praise your children and raise them up, but they still need structure and they still need to learn respect and they still need to learn those things.
Yes.
Um, but just understand that their little even though they might not be consciously, they may be consciously watching a cartoon, their subconscious mind is taking in 40 million bits of information per second too.
Yeah.
So you don't think that they're taking in what you're saying back here or the look on your face, but they are, just like
So,
all.
Kathy, I know that this time was. I told you before we started the show today that this was going to be amazing, and it was amazing. A very good conversation. Tell me, if people want to contact you or know more about you, how they can reach you.
You can check out my website at Indiana Integrative Hypnosis.com. And you can go on there. You can email me. There's a place on the back that you can contact me, send me an email. I like to set up a free consultation because I want to make sure I have to talk to everyone before I will schedule an appointment. I need to really see what they want to work on, make sure that I feel like I can help them, and make sure that they're ready for it. Um, so will you put that? Do you want me to put that in the message? My Indiana integrative hypnosis, or
Maybe put it there, and production can help us with that.
yeah.
Um,
And also, I would tell you that when they go to the website, right on the front page, there's a place where they can sign up for a newsletter. If they put their email in there, it will automatically email them one of my 20-minute hypnosis recordings, and they can try it. It's really good to just turn it on before you go to bed and just go to sleep with it.
okay, awesome. So thank you, Kathy. If you want to say like, okay, maybe you hear 1% of what we talked today, but you want them to live with something, and this is the last phrase, the last thing that if you want to remember something, this is the thing that I want you to remember. What could be that?
That you have so much power between your two ears in this beautiful brain that God gave us. Learn how to use it because it makes you feel so powerful. You really can change your thoughts and just feel better about your life.
Yeah. And this is like that you can understand with this program today why I am doing this program. This is about
Yeah,
creating this type of awareness, really understand that you need to believe in yourself. That's how everything starts. And if you're not believing in some way, or there is something that is stopping you to really believe that you can do something, it's because there is something that you need to work in yourself. If you're not dreaming big enough, it's
right.
because you have something that is stopping you, and it's in your ears. And it's not about what is happening around you. It's not about what is happening in in your country or whatever. It's about what you have inside your ears and what you are believing about yourself. That is exactly why we are here doing this program. And thank you, Kathy. It was amazing. I really enjoyed this conversation today.
Uh, well, thank you for having me on. I love to empower people to know that they really do have a lot of power within.
No, no, and I completely agree. We are limitless at the end, but if we believe that we are limitless, if you
Right.
believe that you have very strict limits, that is true for you. That's why this is important, to start to understand how the brain works, how the mind works, and how we are connected with God and the universe and everything, and we can
Absolutely.
create new things. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone that was here with us today. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.